Are you in Brisbane and looking for Brisbane's largest range of premium aerosols? Crush City was established in 2010 to provide a great retail space and the best quality materials and equipment for every occasion. With heavy stocks of Montana cans, Iron Lac, Bez, Loop and Molotov. To find out more, including opening times and deliveries, get at the team at crushcity.com.au or get at the team via Crush City Fame on Instagram. Or head into the shop at 423 Ipswich Road, Annerley. Crush City are proud sponsors of Beers, Beats and the Biz.
Doors closing. Please stand clear.
Media Fortress is an Australian web hosting company operating out of Melbourne, established in 2009. They offer domains, hosting, website builders, and online marketing support. If you are sick of sending your dollars overseas for a slow-loading website, check out Media Fortress. They will transfer your website free. Domains from as little as $17.50 and hosting from as low as $7.50 per month. Head to mediafortress.com.au for 100% Australian owned, domain registration and Australian hosting, custom website design and search engine optimization and marketing. That's Media Fortress, mediafortress.com.au or call them on 1300 308 488. Media Fortress are official sponsors of Beers, Beats and the Biz. Support businesses supporting us. 420 Superstore are one of Australia's largest providers of 420 cultural giftwares and paraphernalia. Their product range includes a wide variety of items, from dried herb aromatherapy devices, rolling and cutting supplies, herbal extraction devices, hydroponic grow equipment, to candy, carver and clothing. Open at their brick and mortar location at the Hooper Centre, Toowoomba, Queensland, and online at 420superstore.com.au. From seed to satisfied, 420 Superstore has everything you need. Visit 420superstore.com.au today. 420 Superstore are official sponsors of Beers, Beats and the Biz. Support businesses supporting us.
You want to know the real deal? Here it is. You're tuned in to Beers, Beats and the Biz.
All right, check it out. Back in effect once again. This is the Beers, Beats and the Biz podcast, live and direct from the Shire Studios under lights. Shouts to Gus and Dom on the lights. Shout to my man Insidious on the boards, as always, since 100 plus episodes. And man, since filming this podcast, things have been growing exponentially. So thank you to everyone tuning in, everyone tuning in. Head over to Spotify in particular. That's where we're trying to drive the traffic. We're trying to get those numbers up over there, the likes, the the ratings and all that kind of thing. If you wish, go over there, give us 5-star ratings. It's all greatly appreciated. You can head to Apple Podcasts and all that. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/Beers Beats the Biz. I mean, last week we were joined by the young king out of Australia's left coast, out of WA. Shadow. And what an amazing episode that was, just a great dude, great energy. It's good to, I think for me personally, it's good to just feel that new energy that's coming through and also, shine the light on some legends on the rise beyond anything else. We do a lot of history on this podcast. We delve deep into the hip hop world and, its origins in this country, but it's good to see the legends on the come up, that are coming off the back of that. And he spent half that podcast asking us questions about, the early 2000s in this scene and stuff. But listen, when I talk about like this history and this hip hop shit and hip hop in this country, man, you'll see me collar up today because I'm in the presence of a queen. We're in the presence of the queen. Even Brad on his episode, he said that's the queen. And when the queen comes around, you collar up. That's what it is. We're not curtsying around these parts, but we collar up and we show respect. And so listen, without further ado, man, look, you can see the table here. We're going to be talking all kinds of history today. We are joined by the one and only, the Queen, DJ Krisy, and her partner, Madhat, Kriti. Shouts to you guys.
Well done.
Man, thank you both so much for being here.
What's up for having us?
Now, you just wanted to kick this off with a little something.
A little something. Just a dedication to where we're from.
Please, man.
And the early era that gave us our inspirations,
Dude, that's what
so
it's all
much
about, man.
respect to all of it. Yeah. Just kicking it off with a little story. There's hundreds of stories out there, and this is one of them. It started in the early 80s as Melbourne mayhem with guys like Frosty, Flip, 75 and Dskyz. It's up in your face, and it's gonna be live. The number 38 relates to the Grand Sorcerer. Gonna listen to the history? Well, of course you are, because I'm the one to tell you about graffiti's making, not to mention some of the kids that were expressing. Future 4 opened up an early door, rocked the system and truly stayed hardcore. Getting up, all city was part of the game. With crazy trains to take your brain beyond insane. Magic 4 got applause, they were smurfing, y'all, doing burners on the walls to make the toys fall. It's in my memory, and memories will show you that. When MSA came along, they were never whack. I take the time to say peace to my man Pac, and Zoom 2 knew how to bomb the system. Transcendent, now you know that I gotta diss them. They get no respect from me, see? Cause all they wanna do is stop graffiti. It ain't happening, see, TSA, forget them. You're never gonna stop that graffiti mayhem.
Dude, well done, man. Well done, brother. Well done.
Yeah, word, man.
Killing it, man. There's some history right there. Some history in those lyrics.
Some names in there that a lot of people either don't know or haven't heard for decades.
Dude, like, man. You know, I mean, listen.
But that's what we grew up on.
Exactly, bro.
So
and that's what we love hearing too. You know, I mean, we've spoken to so many, you know, I mean, a lot of those names we actually haven't spoken to, you know. I mean, I heard GS38 in there, MSA, like, you know, honestly, Pac.
Oh, a lot of cats.
Like all of these names that you guys came up on. I mean, but listen, I mean, Kriti, like, Brad even said you were a mentor early on, you know, to a lot. And you were you developed quite young as an MC, you know, sort of under the tutelage of Frenzy also.
Yeah, well, long before that. Probably, I think I wrote my first rap at 11 or something like that, you know. Didn't put it out there or anything, you know, just was writing rhymes, you know, sort of a progression from making little mixtapes to b-boying to then just, said, I want to do rhymes, you know, so I started writing raps, and I think it was like 14. By 14, I was on radio. So radio, it was early days.
3 PBS or something?
I think Condorito put me on a show, DJ Krisy. On his show probably 89, 88, somewhere around there anyway.
Wow.
It was early, probably 88 to be honest, because I remember rocking with Positive Direction was in 89, most of that stuff. So so it was before that.
Yeah.
So,
were you, like, if you don't mind me asking, were you coming out of the foster homes and stuff like that?
I was still in them till the mid-90s,
Really?
So a lot of people, pretty much no one knew that I was I didn't talk about it, you know what I mean? So they just thought I was the weird kid, you know? I was in homes from the 70s to mid-90s, So for me, I didn't want to be there as much as I could. I was out in the street, you know, so I was just riding the trains. I was hanging out with, you know, kids at the bench, and, you know, Cameo, rest in peace, you know, was one of the first dudes that really sort of took me under his wing in, you know, that era. Showed me how to, you know, rag and do all that sort of stuff, and little tricks that you do to keep getting by and being safe with it, you know. So, I always had much love for that dude. You know?
Absolutely. Not to cut you off, because listen, we had you guys on, so both you guys have been on this podcast in the past, and it was seeing you guys at the Brad Strutt show. Like, I was honoured to have you there, and I was just like, man, I got to dive at the opportunity to get you both back, you know, because I even went through. I was telling Russ before, I went through like the first hour of the podcast when we had you on. I think it was episode 36, and man, honestly, I just fucking talked all over you guys. Like, I find myself intolerable to listen to. So with this episode, I want to listen to you guys, man. Like, I want to hear this story, and I want to kind of kick things off. I mean, we're already kicking it off with the hip hop. Like, we're going to go deep into this. I mean, Krisy, for anyone on camera, like this history, this step into the AM. Gus, what camera are we on, man? Like, this shit here. Like, you know, this is absolute history sitting in front of me. But before we get to this history, I'm loving seeing what you guys are doing, and I'm intrigued and interested in what you're doing with sharmanic breathwork and, like, you know, all this kind of, I don't know, what is it, different philosophy and approaches to, I suppose, mental health and life and, you know, overcoming various struggles and issues in life. Can we talk? Let's talk on some of this stuff, you know, because
no doubt.
Like, where do you discover this? Is this like Eastern philosophy? And like, explain it to me, because I don't. I'm largely ignorant to this kind of stuff, you know, like, and I'm intrigued by it.
Yeah.
No, Krisy.
Yeah, I mean, ever since I was a young girl, I was always interested in mysticism, shamanism, just other worlds, you know, and philosophy and that. And I learnt, this was like, even though, you know, a big part of my life was in hip-hop, in the early 90s, I went to into nursing and to become a registered nurse. And in my heart of hearts, I always love community and helping people, wanted to inspire. And I, although when I was nursing, I got to work in mental health. I got to work in prisons, and you know, and I saw, like, I used to have to take patients, you know, to go get ECT, electroconvulsive therapy, on their brain for people who suffered, you know, deep depression and couldn't get out of it. They're almost like comatose, and you know, and something in my heart of hearts hated it. Just you know, all these therapies that they were doing on patients, and were medicating them, and if people, you know, had psychotic or going into crisis, we had to quickly just medicate them and shackle them. And I thought, this is no way, you know, for humanity to really help people. And I used to spend a lot of time just on my own. I used to go for drives up to the mountains, up into the Dandenongs, and I used to actually pray. I used to go, like, Creator God, you know, whoever's listening to me, I really want to help, you know, do something for humanity to uplift, and that I wanted to be guided in a way that I could share inspiration and help people, and find the right keys to put light in people's heart and souls. And I said, this just isn't for me, and something really needs to change in society, that there must be other ways to really help people get out of darkness. And you know, and I understand people aren't born that way, that, you know, life circumstances outside of them happen, you know, and it can happen right. You know, for me, being a registered nurse, I was working in maternity, and it was horrific, some things that I witnessed firsthand, that right from the get-go, I remember just being a student nurse, and I was in a hospital, and there was a couple coming in, and they weren't married, and, you know, these were the questions you had to ask. Are you married? What's your name? And that. And because they weren't married, they didn't have a job, and she looked a bit drug affected, and her partner, and just the way the obstetrician was treating her and the other nurses and that. And she ended up giving birth to a stillborn. And then I just remember, you know, they wrapped the baby up and took it away, and they went, you know, the nurses were saying, oh, it was her, you know, the parents' fault anyway, because they were taking drugs. And they had no compassion, nothing to, you know, these parents that just lost their baby. And I remember I picked up the baby and I took it to them, and, you know, I said, do you want to see your baby son and say goodbye? And I had a, you know, it was like a moment where I went, I really need to step out of this industry, or find another key, something else. So I started learning about meditation. And that took me all around the world, to China, to South America, to Peru. It took me to Thailand, to Cambodia, to Tibet, to Kathmandu. I went all around just trying to find the answers or something, you know. It was really hitting my heart, where I was like, I really want to make a difference. And a lot of spirituality was related to religion. And then when I got to start talking to monks or, you know, seekers, that I was like, wow, you know, how do I say, you know, I kind of sensed there was a dark side to religion as well. You know, a lot was about making money. And, you know, it's all coming out now. Even in Buddhism, you know, I went to Dharamsala in, you know, northern India, and, you know, that I had young monks saying to me, you know, we really, you know, we depend on the tourists, and, you know, there was the other side to it about ego and money and that. I was just like, I can't believe this, you know, and I just felt so torn and still so lost about, you know, what do I do? Why am I here? You know, and I felt there was nothing meaningful or purposeful to my life. I just thought, I'm just existing, but I really want to make a difference. And then I was back in Melbourne and I went back to nursing, and I was almost just at a point of burnout. You know, it was just getting worse. I was just spiraling down.
Of course.
And what I mean by that, I used to just go to work. I used to be able to put on a mask, you know, and pretend everything was all cool. I could put on a happy smile and that. But underneath that, I came home. Before coming home, I'd, you know, go past a bottle shop and get wine, and I'd just get takeaway and then just flake out, you know, on the couch in front of the TV. And this kept going on for a few years, and I thought enough is enough. And I went to a retreat with Inner Peace Institute for Wellbeing, and I was introduced to breathwork. And the rest is history, because it was the first time in my life I actually found something that was absolutely so pure is our breath, you know, and loved it. And I thought, I want to learn more about this breathing technique. And when I got to learn more about it from one of my mentor teachers, Leonard Orr, and I've had many along the way since, that not only transform my life, but I've seen so many people's lives transform and really pop, and people really just shape-shifting and stepping into, you know, what gives them meaning and hope. And
Dude,
so
that's amazing.
I know that was a big spiel.
No. I mean, but you know, like, you know, as you said that and you talked about breath, you know what made me think? Fucking COVID now. Like, we can't even, like, we've got to cover our faces again and shit like this, you know? Like, it
stopped business for us in Melbourne. Like, with the lockdowns down there, it was just game over.
Yeah. How do you run breathwork during fucking COVID
you can't,
epidemic?
you know?
Like, you know, absolutely.
You couldn't, so
I mean,
it was hectic.
there were people doing it via Zoom. That's where Zoom just like popped. It became so big. And so it was great to see. We didn't do it, but we noticed others that, you know, people, no matter what, you know, we had to be in lockdown and stay home, that people could still connect through Zoom. So I thought, you know, great with technology, you know.
When did you guys move here?
2 years ago.
Okay.
About 2 years
So
ago.
just following the first COVID?
I think we'd gone through about 7 or 8 months of lockdown in Melbourne, and then we just went, look, we've got to get out of here. And we were looking around going, where can we go? We were actually looking at overseas, but it was just crazy at the time, and you couldn't even get out of the country. And if you did, you weren't getting back. So we were like, okay, well, what else is... And she loves her warm weather, you know, so it was like... you know, we'd travel to Bali probably, you know, 2-3 times a year. So we thought, well, where's something like that, but always, you know, and so Queensland. So, and then we did a bit of research and saw that it was pretty much non-existent up here compared to Melbourne, you know, so with the COVID sort of side of it.
Yeah, through that period, fuck yeah.
And so we just quickly packed everything and made a move.
Because even when we had you on last time, you were visiting, and you actually, Krisy, you even made a point to say, like, you like the weather here, you know, like just escaping the bitterness of Melbourne, you know? Because last time you were here, I'd been in Melbourne the week prior, and that was when Raf did his... you remember Raf Boogie? He did his flipathon, you know, he's raising the money or whatever. And we had you guys up here that week following, and I remember being like, I know that bitterness. Like, I'd seen that bitterness. I mean, you know, we've been to Melbourne that many times, but just, you know.
It got that cold sometimes. You'd literally, like, I remember some winters I was like, you know, feathered dooners, two of them, hoodie, beanie, and still freezing. You know what I mean? You're actually shaking still and just going, wow, this is not going to work, you know?
Man, Doc was telling me, who Brad Strutt's DJ, when they got picked up from the airport the other day, they got here at 7:30 in the morning, and Doc reckons they got on the plane in fucking hoodies and vests and jeans and shit like that, and they walked out of the airport and they went, it's 7:30 in the morning, how the fuck does it feel like, excuse my language, but how does it feel like this? Like, they're peeling layers off because it was so humid, you know. But listen, but I mean, like, you know, I mean,
we haven't gotten used to that yet.
No, you're still getting used to that.
It's to us, it's like it's almost like the air's wet, you're breathing water.
Oh,
You know what I mean? Half the time, and you're sweating and dripping for doing
It's crazy
nothing.
up
You
here,
know what I mean?
It's crazy up here, dude. Like Melbourne could
It's
be,
pretty good.
bro. Melbourne could be
Yeah.
like 4 seasons in a day.
Yeah.
Brisbane is like 4 seasons in a week sometimes nowadays.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like it's not in a day. You just
Yeah.
get that. Like we'll get a day of pissing
Yeah.
down rain.
That
Then the
being
next
said-
day it's like 35 and humid.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
like man.
Oh,
you
it gets
you
muggy as hell, yeah.
Like that, and then you might
Yeah.
get 33 degrees and it's beautiful.
But
It's
that
just
being
sunny.
said,
It's
we've got
gorgeous,
mad
you know?
love for Queensland, especially
Yeah.
Brisbane for me, coming
Yeah,
up
yeah.
early, like 92, 94,
Exactly.
between that era. I was up a fair few times and, up to 3 months at a time, you know what I
Yes.
mean? So
Yeah, yeah.
it was always nothing but love. So,
Yeah.
always we loved it up here anyway,
Dude,
So
we,
it was,
listen,
Yeah.
I love having you guys here. I'm
Yeah.
honoured to have
Oh,
you
good.
guys here. As
Honoured to
already
be here.
stated, on Brad's episode, he cited you, you when you went
Yeah,
on
yeah.
Madhat as an early influence, and then
Yeah.
Krisy as the queen. And like I should from the outset, as I said at the start of the last time we had you, things like what we're doing here today, whether you are given the credit or not, Krisy, this is the point of doing this because we can only exist out here because of the path you paved.
Yeah.
Like you've been doing this, like Krisy brought out the photo albums and stuff, and these aren't even the good ones I'm hearing, but
we couldn't find them.
exactly, like. Man, I'm excited to have you here. I've got to say, like, I don't even know where to go. I mean, you guys have got. We'll continue just with this for a little bit longer. I mean, the shamanic breathwork you've found, like, what did it bring? You've written a chapter.
Yeah,
in
so
this book?
we learnt the shamanic breathwork process through a woman called Starwolf from North Carolina.
Okay.
She runs Venus Rising Association for Transformation, so she's got a big sort of temple up there in a mountain, and teaches all over the world. And so when Krisy and I first reconnected after not seeing each other for like a decade or something, she just sort of said she'd done half of her training with Starwolf at that time. I'd done none at that time with her. And then she just sort of said, I heard you do music, because we'd sort of gone from hip-hop into our spiritual paths, and little we didn't know that we're both doing the same thing, So when we reconnected, she said, can you do like a CD for me, like a sound journey or something I can play at my breathwork? And I said, does anyone DJ it live? She goes, no one in the world does that yet at the time, I think there was one guy who was also from Melbourne, a guy called Anthony Eaton, just absolute legend. Ran a place called Chi Wellness Centre in Melbourne, in Northcote. But so I said, look, I'll DJ it even better. And she's like, really? And I go, yeah. And then so I did that. And then I was like, I saw how powerful the process was, and I was just like, there's something going on here. This is really powerful, and really good. I want to know more about it. So then there was another training with Starwolf, and she was going to go and finish her training because it's 2-part. And then, so I said, well, I'll go and do it too, because I want to know what they're going through. I want to know how to deal with things like that if you need a hand, and understand the deeper sort of depths of, the psyche and what's happening within us and what's everyone's capable of, through natural means, for healing. And which was very important to me. So coming up in the homes, I had, extreme anxiety, PTSD, all my life, and I'd never really spoken about it. It's pretty much what got me out of the hip hop scene at the time. Was it started about 94-ish, where it was really kicking in what my life was, and having no one to talk to about it, although I did have, but I just didn't see them that
Was
way.
it your life in comparison to others, the lives of others that
Well,
you had
part-
around you?
part
They
of
had
it.
families to go to? Or
Part
they
of
didn't,
it, there'd be the moments where you'd be sort of in a car with a bunch of mates and they'd all be talking about, my dad taught me how to fix this on the car, didn't they? And I'd just be silent with the whole conversation because I had nothing to add, I didn't have that experience, in life. So, my mum was married to a Hell's Angel, and that was just crazy shit, The only thing I remember from that is parties and her stabbing him in the head, picking us up, stepping over his body and walking out and never seeing him again, it's all in the book. But, and then...
So this has worked in dealing with a lot of those early traumas. I would
Yeah.
imagine,
It's sort of well. Basically, that book there is about shamanic breathwork, the nature of change. So it's basically it's stories from about 25 or 26 or so of her sort of top facilitators from around the world, sharing their stories of the traumas they've come through in life, how they discovered shamanic breathwork and how it helped transform their lives and then in turn others around you.
And here we are featuring Krisy Conroy and Kriti Script. Wow.
Yeah, so that's a bit of that is in there.
Yeah.
We got like 3,000 words each. Most people were just one person doing it, but we had to sort of split it. So our stories are sort of 1,500 words each put into one. Yeah. But yeah, it came up really well. It ended up, it was a #1 bestseller on Amazon in the first week for healing books. So it's out there. But yeah, and so where was I? Yeah, so I was so I went and did the training as well. Came back and we decided to create shamanic transcendence, which is what we're doing now with the breathwork. But yeah, it was just more of originally to understand what she was doing and what we're helping with, and then it sort of just really sunk in and became life for us.
And I think does it sort of go back to even what you were just saying, Krisy, where like there's extenuating circumstances that surround the individual's decision making. Like we can kind of look like you can take everything, just surface level and go, oh, this dude's a weirdo, this dude's or whatever. But what informed that human being to do that? I mean, like you said, your mum picked you up and stepped over a dead body, and you're out the fucking.
Well, he
door.
lived apparently, but we never saw him again.
Jesus Christ.
But he walked himself. Apparently, the story was he walked himself down the street with a knife sticking out of his head still, like it was literally there. He stumbled down to the doctors, the local GP at the time in the 70s, early 70s. If it had been like half an inch deeper, he would have died, But
and that just led to a life of chaos.
And that was all just, it was chaos before that. And after that, my mother grew up. My mother grew up in homes as well herself, foster homes. She was in a big family, like 11, 12 brothers and sisters, they were huge, and they all got put in homes except for one. And so in the homes, eventually, she was in an orphanage originally, and the nuns and that used to just beat the kids. And, it was like back then there was no rules, no morals, no anything, and so they kept them there until they were old enough to fight back, basically. And then they'd ship them off to foster homes, So, so she got
abused again by...
she got shipped off to some like Russian family that were like just a mother and her 2 sons or something, and... she was a drunk, so she didn't even care. They treated her like Cinderella, belled her if she didn't do the jobs right, The son and his 3 mates were raping her daily pretty much from 12 to 16, you know what I mean? And I was born from one of those rapes, so she was finally able to get out, I think, when she was 18 or something, So she... and in that meantime, she'd gone to the government, to the welfare department, and told them what they're doing, and they're like, well, no one wants you, you have to go back to the same place, and they sent her back, so nothing could be done about it, back then. And then so that cycle just continued through life, and she just kept putting herself in bad people's paths, and I would be like 14 and having to fight 35-year-olds, of her drunk boyfriends for being abusive, so it was just hell. But But so for me, that's why, the streets pretty much, I just got put in homes myself, and then so I'd just go, meet up with people in the streets and carry a ghetto blaster and had all the tunes back then somehow, so they loved that, and all the writers sort of took me under the wing at the time. But so it was real hell of life there coming through that. And then it was like by about 94, I was still with Frenzy, rocking with Frenzy. We were probably at my peak, and then by 96 I disappeared, But over those few years it really started hitting me, all my life I'd been through. So I just hadn't dealt with anything at all, the whole time, my whole life. And I didn't still until I was about 40 before I finally started talking about my past, to people.
Because who do you talk, like in those days, I mean, suck it up and fucking move on. Well, I had friends that I'd known for 20 years that didn't even know. You know what I mean? Like it was that deep in me, like that I just couldn't bring it out, and tell people why I was, how I was, or what was going on for me, you know what I mean? So there was 1 or 2 people maybe that would have known until I was 40 odd, and then I had a complete breakdown, and just sort of thought, I'll give my whole life to hip hop. No one was getting paid back then, you know what I mean? We were just doing it, because we're trying to get it out there, So I just had enough of that and just went, I need to step back and just do my life for a while, and that sort of turned into, I rented a room at a friend's house and didn't go out, didn't go to clubs, didn't go to events, didn't do anything. I just stayed there for basically in one room for 17 years straight. Came out to go to the shops, get groceries or whatever, come straight back, you know what I mean? And then I was straight back to my room. I just sat there playing video games,
making music, which
Good.
I wasn't playing to anybody, you know.
A dead cat wrapped in glass
Yeah,
wrap.
you know, pretty much.
Anyone seen Bad Boy
Wasn't-
Bubby?
It wasn't quite like that, but you know.
Yeah, I know, I'm
But
just-
it was
I'm just
fucked
fuck-
up.
I'm fucking
It was
around.
mental,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
It was just, I was crazy, you know. I was
Yeah,
just
bro,
not with life, you know. And
Yeah.
I'd given up on life almost and just gone, you know what?
God.
If this is as good as it gets and I'm single for the rest of my life, so be it, you know.
Fuck.
It can't be worse than this. At least I'm not in jail. I'm not fucked up, you know,
Yeah,
whatever.
dude.
I'm, you know, I had my days abusing myself in my younger years, you know, and so I just went, well, I'm past that now. I haven't got much else going on, but it's not bad. You know?
Yeah.
And so I just accepted that and went, that's how good it gets, you know.
Yeah. How did you improve things?
Well, it was when I met Krisy again, when because my friend who I was
I mean, the
sharing the
compassion,
place with.
Krisy, clearly.
Well, basically, I had a friend who I shared the place with for like 20 years.
Yeah.
And she was so unwell. Like, she was in pain all the time. She'd been through surgeries. Nothing was fixing it. They couldn't figure out what was going on. She couldn't leave the house either. So I'd even be doing her groceries for her, you know, and stuff. I'd come out of my room and she'd be crawling on the ground trying to get a drink of water, you know. She couldn't walk sometimes from like me to your way, you know.
Shit.
And so I said, I remember hearing about Krisy doing healing stuff. And I went, I want to get in contact with her, see if she can help my friend, you know. And so I got in contact with her then, and she did that. And sure enough, 3 weeks later or something, my friend was out of the house and went over to Bali with Krisy. You know, and I'm going, what the hell? I'm going, damn, she's good, you know.
Yeah.
Because no one could do that.
Yeah.
And then that's when we sort of started talking again after that, you know. And then as that grew, we sort of grew closer together as well, individually and as a couple. So we just decided to make, you know, our life that.
Yeah. What did you do?
Yeah.
What did you do, Krisy? Like, no,
She did a breathwork session for her, yeah.
Breathwork,
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Wow.
I mean, I was still working full-time as a registered nurse, but on the side I'd studied breathwork originally with Leonard Orr.
Okay.
And then 10 years later I was introduced to shamanic breathwork, and it really intrigued me, shamanism, because this was like 40,000 years before religion.
Exactly, yeah.
And I went, wow. And I was... like I said, I was so intrigued by shamanism, how I realised with myself that I was so similar to what shamans were doing, that I had an innate ability to be able to do what in shamanism they call soul retrievals or soul extractions, and that I was able to have visions and see what people actually needed, and you know, and how to help them move forward in their life, no matter what circumstances they've been through. Was so interesting. I was also, I'd have to backtrack a bit. I lost my parents when I was 30, and so I was really. I really, when I miss them, I grieve for them so much, and I learnt about mediumship, psychic development, and as I was learning about all that, I found I was just able to get the keys to be able to foresee in my mind's eye to help other people, like answers and things that they needed, and
She's the real deal
and
psychic.
to amalgamate it with shamanism. I also learnt Reiki healing and got to my master level, and so I was learning about energies and spirituality and just putting it all together. And you know, don't get me wrong, I've got nothing against the medical model or system, you know, fantastic. You know, if I broke a leg, I want to go to hospital and get my painkillers and antibiotics and that. But I, you know, by the time I was 18 and went to nursing school, I was introduced, you know, to such a big world of working in jails and working in drug and alcohol facilities. And, you know, I saw like 100 shades of blackness out there, and that, you know, right from the, you know, I worked with inmates in maximum security, and, you know, I wanted to know more about their stories, because we're not born this way, you know, and how do people end up becoming so fucked, you know, and so, you know, sabotaging their life. And so I love hearing people's stories, and, you know, honest to God, you know, I had this belief in my heart, you know, that if we have some faith and something beyond the unseen. Sometimes there's things we can't see, but we can feel. And with breath, with breath work, I found it such, an important key to help people, for their healing and to, like I said, to shapeshift, to move forward. And so that's
without breath, there's no life.
Absolutely.
Without breath, there's no life.
Everything can change. And over the years, I've worked with people and with who Kriti was talking about with Jenny, that that it's absolutely so powerful and anybody can do it. And the funny thing is, probably in the last 10 years, it's just been like wildfire around the whole world that it's spreading this work.
So I was actually going to say, like, this kind of is like, this sort of stuff is almost like a boom industry now, isn't it? There's like a lot. I mean, I don't know whether boom industry is the right term because user practitioners and user people like
it's becoming a norm now.
It is very much
it's known and heard about, and there's so many varieties of breathwork as well.
Because like just growing up as a teenager in the 90s with Catholic parents and all that sort of shit. Like, man, like, you kind of learn as an adult that Christianity itself or, organized religion is at the root of so much evil in this world, and it's like these things that were once viewed as, and not to detract from it, but I'm just going back to when I was a kid in the 90s, like if my old man saw some shit like this, it'd be some fucking weirdo crackpot theory shit. Like,
it'd be like a hug a tree,
get on with the job, what's this about? What's this rubbish? My mum would be like, you go to church and you get, it's like, but like this is the stuff that's been swept under the carpet for centuries. We lost this knowledge at a point.
It's about not following an idea. It's not following a rule or a law. It's the fact that every one of us has that inner healer available to us inside. Within ourselves, we have a choice. To either respond or react to situations. And that can change everything in that path. And so it's more getting past this monkey mind, that's always chattering at you about this or that, but what ifs and what after. It's like we can't change the past. That happens, right? We can learn to respond to the situations better, in the future. But we can't really plan for a future either because that's anything could happen and there goes that. You know what I mean? Yeah. But in this moment right now is where we have complete control of how we respond or react. Yeah. To which one we choose, whether we spiral up or we spiral down because of it, no matter how bad or good it is, knowing that everything's constantly changing, you know what I mean? So it's like even the good and the bad, just learning to be comfortable with being able to let it go. Not let it become part of you so that you're wallowing in that for years to come and causing yourself self-torture, you know what I mean? Like, we've all done that, more than we needed to.
Course,
so
of course.
It's like,
you put yourself through it,
Well, I was going back to that, coming through the homes and everything. By the time I did start talking about it and had that complete breakdown when I was 40, they were putting me on like antipsychotics, all these crazy things. I'd be walking down the street, because I'd be like going for a walk. I was living up in the country with my mum at the time, looking after her because she's not well at all. Yeah. And I'd be on these medications and I'd go out for a walk and I'd be walking up the footpath and next thing I knew, I'm just standing in the middle of the road going, how the hell did I get here? Shit. I got to go home. This is not cool, you know? Yeah. They were just numbing me, zombifying me, so I didn't even know what my world was around me anymore.
Exactly.
So it was when I first did breath work, they talk about this journey and that you can have visions and this and that happens or whatever, or you'll get wisdom come to you. And these are all real things. Yeah. But for me, the first time I did breath work, I had none of that. But what I did get was, this is a powerful process. There's more to this I need to know. Yeah. So I went again, to another one. Yeah. And that's where everything changed for me. And from that day on, I didn't have a single medication, nor did I need to. Wow. And life completely changed. Yeah, and that's when I basically dedicated my life to just helping others not suffer as long as I had to, and longer than they need to. You know?
Do you
like
think,
Krisy was saying.
Do you think we're treating, various mental health issues and stuff incorrectly by medicating? I'll ask you, Krisy, like by, by just, like someone goes and sees a doctor, 2 days later they've got a script for fucking whatever antidepressant or Xanax or Valium or blah, 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 whatever they can throw at them, whatever pharmaceutical.
The
like, are we mistreating those kind of issues?
Well, they're calling it that way too often.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the time people may not necessarily have that situation, that whatever the diagnosis is, I agree. All they need is to be heard.
Yeah.
They need to be able to be like accepted as another being, no matter what their experience is.
Yeah.
And if you give them the space to do that, that can change everything.
And then when you see some of these people that do get medicated, so you see them pre the medication, because I've had people in my own life like where this has been an issue, and I've seen them pre the medication and post the medication, and it's like you said, they're fucking zombified, and then beyond that, they're then offered an excuse as to why they're in that, and that it's a valid excuse that they've just been medicated into a state of incapacity, like you're just a state.
Oh, you've got no control over it.
Yeah,
really.
like where maybe if that person just had have been encouraged into, maybe just into a bit of light work. A couple of days a week, maybe get out and a bit of exercise, someone just to coach them through, just to get them, integrate them into various life things. Yeah. It might be better suited than just fucking medicating someone and going, boom, on your 100%. Way. And there's now your excuse, I can't do shit because I'm I'm on this drug and I'm on that drug, and then they've got to balance the fucking drugs. And it's just like, what the
They end up becoming ill, actually ill.
It's unbelievable to me, man.
Yeah.
It's, there was a documentary that came out called Crazy Wise.
Okay.
And it's fabulous. I recommend so many people to check it out. It's free on YouTube. And if you're interested in this subject, and unfortunately, when, someone has gone through crisis or circumstance, and they'll go to the doctor and want help to take the edge off, or, how do I cope, just to cope, get through day to day. So doctor will put them on antidepressants. I'll give you an anxiolytic. I'll give you sleeping tablet. But you're still not getting to the core. And like for me with healing, and what I've witnessed is people need to really feel what they're feeling, not to blanket it by medication, by alcohol, by drugs, not to feel, and it's like running from trauma or the circumstance. They need to feel it, because when you get to feel it, you get to understand that's the medicine.
Yeah, that's right.
What's really there. So something needs to change. And no one's going to change your life. It's up to you. No one can do it. You got to do the work. That's what we tell people, to come, lay down, breathe. And I promise you, when you do this work, you get your own insights. And Kriti and I, when we started working together, I said to him, let's approach the Psychedelic Society, because, people just think, those who take psychedelics are just trippers and, no, we understood that with shamanic breathwork that people can go into what we call non-ordinary states of consciousness really quick by doing this, circular breathing method, and can really be able to access what we call these really good feel hormones in the brain, oxytocin, endorphins, serotonin, DMT, and these, beautiful neurochemicals can help someone to be in a state of absolute bliss, ecstasy. When you're in when you're in that state, you're able to access what we call like trusting your primal or your innate ability to be able to process and move through things, when you're more calmer and what else can I say, Kriti, about that? I can say so much more, but
feel free.
I've worked with people, I've worked with women who've been gang raped. I've dealt with people, who've been sacrificed as part of religions in, cults. People who have suffered for so many years, not coping, with breath work, it's really just help them to really, take control back of their lives. Yeah. And it's amazing because breathwork comes under the umbrella of yoga, and yoga, it's body, mind, and spirit. Yes. So when you go into a doctor, they're just looking after maybe a little bit of the body, but not taking that whole holistic approach to someone's care. And so, I love this work so much, and you can have so much fun with it. Yeah. At the same time, I've got Kriti DJing live, and taking them on a music journey, and you're just lying down and breathing, and that you're able to access your own wisdom, your own power, and be able to integrate that into life. And, sometimes, Kriti and I, we need to help process people through whatever they're going through, but it's such a quick way to move through the shit,
it is so powerful. Like, I mean, I've had experiences where I had my gallbladder taken out a few years back, 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah. And I didn't know anything about really anatomy and whatnot, and what was good for what and what it actually does, and all that sort of stuff. I just lived my life, you know what I mean? Exactly. As most do. Yeah. But during a breathwork journey, at one point, I remember I had this one vision where I was having these cards, like little cards, and each one had a fruit or a vegetable on it and a bit of information of what it is, what it's good for, why you need it. You know what I mean? And they're all flashing at me so fast I couldn't tell what they were, which ones were what. But then one of them eventually just stopped. And it was beetroot, or something. And then so afterwards I'm going, why is it showing me this? And it's saying that it's for this. And so I've done the research, looked it up, and it said it's really good for your liver.
Gallbladder?
No, the liver, which just which there's a tube that comes from your liver that goes to your gallbladder, which creates the bile, that breaks down your fats. And then it gets stored there and then goes to your stomach as it's needed. So mine, they had to take the gallbladder out, so they just joined it straight to the stomach. So it's just pumping what it needs. It can't keep up with it. So it's easy for your liver to not be healthy. So it was saying you need this in your life to make that healthy and strong again. You know what I mean? And I didn't know this stuff before the session. Wow. So these things come to me and then I look it up and it's real deal. And I'm going, there's something to this, And that was, I think, the second breathwork I went to or something. And
how were these issues treated centuries ago when they existed? I know a lot of issues are now just based on lifestyle decisions, what we put into our body. But
no, mine was definitely self-inflicted. Just ate crap at the time and didn't.
I know what you're saying, man.
So it was interesting.
It's all about raising consciousness, and people like what Kriti said. Raising, it's like your light, consciousness, higher, becoming more self-aware, gaining more clarity, and that inner awareness of what, you need to do, body, mind and spirit. So for him it was, having more beetroot in his diet. People, start to get vision, people on journean get, visions or, that innate intelligence we have within us. And in shamanism, shamans believe we all have past lives. Yes. And but also we need to honour our ancestors. And in journeys, people say that we can contact our ancestors 7 generations back. Wow. And when we do journeys, we do a little ritual summon, like we summon ceremony to call them in. And just to ask, no matter, we say to people, what's your intention? Why are you here? And to call them in, or call your guides, your helpers. And this work is, welcome to all doctrines, of no matter what religion, belief, faith, whatever it is. It might be, you might be atheist. It doesn't matter. It's just, whatever, is sacred to you, to call it in and put out your prayers or your intentions. And, we guarantee this work helps people.
Yeah.
For me, I know, and a lot of people know that the pharmaceutical industry is their primary purpose isn't about health prevention and trying to help people. It's all about making money.
Yeah, exactly.
And,
exactly.
and we, something needs to change in the world. And we come back to nature.
Yeah.
We've got all the medicine growing in our backyard.
Yeah.
Just natural herbs and fruit and vegetables. And, unfortunately in the world, we're becoming more and more sick. The rise of mental health is increasing. It's 1 in every 4. Depression, anxiety, there's people are on medications for mental health issues. And we're seeing this more and more on the rise, and people who might be watching or listening to this thinking, what the hell are these two talking about, and that, we say to people, come and just try it, lay down, breathe. And we guaranteed, like I did a session, I don't think Pac from AKA Brothers would mind me sharing.
Yeah.
Within about 5 or 10 minutes, he started doing this practice and he went into altered states, and then all of a sudden his legs were in midair. It was like as if he was riding a bike and riding the whole time for an hour and a half.
What?
And
Wow.
and he didn't even remember. But his Kriti, what's his job? His business with the BMX or
he's into
mountain biking.
With
Yeah,
mountain
he was
biking.
you
pro
see him
mountain
on
biker,
social
yeah.
media. Yeah,
At the
he's
time,
on
yeah.
on the pushies.
But it was just bizarre, that
legend at it.
that people can just trust themselves. We all have the answers within us, and just coming back to nature with everything. And we're just getting so caught up in everything outside of us, and not just stopping and just breathing and just listening to our own heart and soul.
I know.
It's like,
I agree.
if I'm a doctor
I agree.
and it's
Just
like
stopping just for
if
a
I-
minute.
if I offer you, these sorts of tools, you can heal yourself.
Yeah.
But if I offer you a prescription, I've got a client for life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Fucking
so
A,
where are you going to go?
dude.
People want the money. They
How's
want the
that?
business. So
How's that?
that's
exactly
basically what
right.
it comes down to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Dude, because this stuff here is in part why I wanted you to come back, because I've seen the work you're doing, and man, I'm open, I'm always this makes more sense to me than how not how I was raised. I'm going to take nothing from my folks. I love my folks, but this stuff makes more sense to me than I've even heard recently about people studying, people at university, and microdosing mushrooms just in order to study, in order to focus and do things. And I'm someone that just fucking is almost impossible to focus on shit.
It's all within
crazy.
yourself. It's not not like I said. It's not like.
But I do think that.
It's not like a conversion to something. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
it's just within you and what energy you put into you.
But
You know what I mean?
I do believe there's so much power in just your thought. In just
Yeah,
your mind,
well, our
alone,
world,
just thinking it,
our
just
words
knowing
create
it.
our world, as you know. So it's like, it's like almost like, think of your words. A guy called Puma, a shaman called Puma, he told me this one. Think of your words as spirit, and what kind of spirits do you want to attract to yourself? You know what I mean? And so how you hold yourself and how you think and how you project to the world, is what you're going to get back, and what you're going to be around, and because they're the only things that's what will tolerate you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so.
What did I hear? I heard that if you knew exactly how powerful your thoughts are, you'd never have a bad one. You'd never have a bad one if you knew how they were. And then even going back, because just you were saying something before, you made me think. I remember in the early days of Twitter, I saw Rakim on Twitter, and I'd started an account just to follow rappers, and Rakim had a tweet, and he said, "If you can think it, you can make it so."
Yeah.
And I was like,
no
fuck,
doubt.
the God
Yeah.
MC. You know,
Yeah.
like, wow.
He's right.
Yeah, you know, yeah.
You know
you
what I
can,
mean?
man.
Like, yeah.
That's how powerful it is.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like it is. I
Yeah.
firmly believe it. When I see what you guys are doing, man, I think it needs to be applauded because this is the type of stuff that gets people off all those fucking shit medications and things that lead to further depression and further downward spirals.
If it wasn't for it, I wouldn't be here sitting there talking to you.
straight
You know
up.
what I mean?
I believe it,
who
bro.
knows where I'd be,
You know,
but
like
I
I don't
wouldn't
know,
be here. You know?
and I don't know that
Yeah,
story. You
yeah.
know, like and just hearing even just a portion of it, man, I barely even scratched the
So
surface of
it's
your-
massive. Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
What
you
it
know?
can do for yourself, you know, is beyond. You
And
know,
for the
it-
two of you to be
bring it to
here
the
now,
surface.
giving, now giving back.
It's like
you know,
bringing yourself to the surface and taking that first breath of real air for your life for once, you know, in your life, you know, being able to have that opportunity where you just probably couldn't have reached that, you know, if you didn't have the tools.
Yeah, dude.
And when you're in that position, you're not thinking about what tools have I got, you know, that I maybe be able to get out of. You know, you're living the moment.
Yeah.
You know, and that moment isn't a good one, you know, so your outcome isn't a good one, you know,
of course.
because your thoughts aren't good and your
That's
words
right.
aren't good, and, you know, and you pretty much give up. So, you know, it's
Wow.
very easy to go those routes, you know.
Yeah. Well, they are. They're fucking.
yeah.
That is the easy.
I
route.
mean,
It is.
I mean, we've all done it. Been to the bottom.
Yeah, we've all
through
been
it,
there,
you know,
yeah,
through
yeah,
self-sabotage, basically.
Yeah,
you know,
man.
so
Yeah.
having the tools to be able to reach that, you know, a bit of air for yourself, surface for yourself, you know, and you know, having those extraordinary and altered state type experiences, you know, and being able to bring the wisdom from within into your world and integrate it into your being that moment forward, that then resonates to the people around you as well, you know. So your world can only get better, you know, because you won't associate yourself with, you'll have to let go of some people in your life, you know what I mean? But and it's tough, but you have to do it if you care about yourself, you know, enough to want to be something that's decent for anyone else around you, you know.
Wow.
So
wow.
it can be
Wow.
massive.
I mean, like, listen. I mean, we're here to, you know, we're here, like in my world, we're here to celebrate, you know, and to communicate and to, you know, commemorate, you know, like, you know, just the achievements and the things you're doing. And I think we're going to come back to a lot of this stuff throughout the conversation, you know. But, you know, man, people want to hear that hip hop talk too, you know. Like, and it's just,
absolutely.
you know, and it's all related. Like, man, like, no, it's
Yeah.
just this is just conversation. I'm down,
It
like,
is.
you know, but like, here's the thing. I got these photo albums sitting in front of me right now. You know, like I've got some fucking like I'm looking at Melbourne graffiti history from 1985, and I am looking at one of you know. Okay, all right, let's throw this one out, Krisy. You know, for someone who's compassionate and that has worked as hard as you are, I mean. You are the person that kicked Peter Stevens and ran the fuck out of the fucking transit center or the cop shop. Can we just go a little bit into that? Like, because, you know, over the course of this podcast, we've spoken to a lot of riders. We talk about, you know, being, you know, the hand that Melbourne Transit's dealt used guys. Now, you were a woman, a young lady in that era, 1985, 86, 87.
Yeah, I was a teenager.
You know? Yeah. You know, I'm just like, man, and then, you know, like Kriti was saying before, man, she kicked Peter Stevens and ran the fuck out of there, like crippled the dude, or, you know, folded the dude over. And,
he wasn't getting up in the next 5 minutes anyway, you know what I mean?
Krisy, like, I want to go into like MSA and USA, like, I want to talk some history with you that we probably didn't touch on as much in the first podcast and stuff like that. Can you tell us the Peter Stevens story? Can you tell us that?
Okay.
If you don't mind.
I mean, when I was about 16, a lot of riders knew I was such a good racker. So, like, to steal paint, I could go into paint stores. At that time, I was going to a private girls' school. And I think I mentioned this in the previous podcast that, I went to private girls' school and I had a blazer on and a checkered skirt and but underneath it, I had like a girdle and I could, you know, fit in about 15 spray cans, you know, under my jumper and, you know, just go in anywhere. And a friend of mine, Dskyz, Gazza from MSA crew, he knew that, you know, he was surprised how much I could in one day just go and get so much paint, markers, ink and that. And he wanted to come hang out with me and I told him places where I got paint and that. And it's like, oh, my gosh, no one looks at you twice when you go into stores, you know, and you look so inconspicuous and get so much. And we spent like a whole day like just full on racking and it was almost like a big – like we had just finished up and we're in the city and it was like imagine a big extra large suitcase,
Yeah.
all full of paint and markers and ink and everything. And I said to Dskyz, I said, oh, look, I think we should get it. I'd always, since I was a little girl, had these inclinations, think when things are going to happen. And I said, hey, we should get a tram home. Don't catch the train. And he goes, no, we'll be right. We'll catch, the train. It'll be quicker. And I went, no, we should really just get on a tram home. And then as soon as we turned around, it was Peter Stevens. And he said, what's in the bag?
Yeah.
And we'd racked the whole day. And anyway, they took us into the transit office and separated us.
Yeah.
And he was really trying to intimidate me and, say, I've been knowing what you've been up to, Krisy, and, finally got you here and that. And he said, just wait here. I'm going to go into another room. I think he went to go get a typewriter and paper to get a statement from me.
Yeah.
And he kept, prodding me with his fingers, pressing them into my shoulder and chest, and because I was a bit of a smart ass because he kept asking my name and, I was saying, Daffy Duck and all this stuff and just being a real smart ass. Yeah. And he started, pointing at me really hard in the chest. Yeah. And, it was physical abuse back then, and it was getting harder and harder, and he kept just threatening me with what I was going to be charged with and that, and he had all the spray cans and ink on the table and that. And I said, look, I just bought these all at a market and you don't get receipts for these. And Dskyz and I, we run workshops, community centres, and we use all these markers and that to teach kids how to be creative. And I'm talking shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then he was like, oh, this is bullshit and rah, 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 rah. And anyhow, he said, look, he started typing. I didn't know what he was typing. He goes, you're going to sign this? And I said, no, I haven't done anything wrong. And anyhow, he just kept badgering me and that. And this was going on for, so many hours. And all of a sudden I just got up. I just took a deep breath, got up and just side kicked him right into his knee and bolted out. And remember Dskyz was just pissed off because his parents ended up having to be called in because we're only 16, 17 years of age, and I just ran off and, I think he just told him that I was just, on the streets or don't know where she lives, I just know she comes to the city square and hangs out and that. And they couldn't charge Gaza, they couldn't get anything, pin anything on us. But that was just one of the stories. But then when I, a few years after that, I recall I wasn't sure what I wanted to do in my life. One part of me wanted to make movies and get into film and television school at Swinburne. Yeah. And I remember part of getting in, you had to submit a 7-minute film and some photographs. Yeah. And I don't know what came into my head. I have no idea. Yeah. But something just told me I needed to go back to the transit office. This was about 2 years later, and talk to Peter Stevens. One, that I needed to apologise, and two, whether he'd be willing for me to take a photo of him on a train for my project to get into film and television school.
And that's the photo in Kingsway?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
in the bomb train carriage?
Yeah.
That's your photo.
Yeah.
Because I knew you were a key contributor. I brought Kingsway with me here. But not knowing Krisy was going to be bringing, these albums. Wow. So you took that photo. And what, interviewed him or?
Sorry, I didn't interview him. I just told him I was planning to either see if I can get into college to become a nurse or otherwise film and television. Yeah. That I was interested in directing or producing, and he was really happy for me. And
I was going to say, was he encouraging?
Yeah, he said, he just said, look, thank you so much for popping in. I said, I really apologise for what I did and that my life, I really want to step forward into doing something positive.
Yeah.
And, and I said, I just had this, I don't know, this vision of what photo I wanted to take for him and just say, look, you know, I just want to apologise. But I said, you know, you were, I said to Peter, I said, you were so big, you know, such a scary figure, you know, as a kid growing up and that. And, I said, but, you know, I still want to acknowledge you for, you know, what you're doing. And, but, you know, in my heart of hearts, I had to say sorry to him and for what I did. And he said he was okay and just wished me well. And
This one.
yeah, and then the transit office, they use that actual image as a campaign against graffiti in Melbourne.
Wow. And look at that, the Tame 1 tags. We've had Tame on the
Yeah.
podcast, DMA.
Yeah.
Man, who else is in here? It's me. Man, this is crazy. You took that photo, Krisy.
Yeah.
What a shot. What a shot. All in uniform, like all doll, like, you know, like full dress to the nines. You know, did you go in there that day? Like, had you like set this up? You know, like how does he wind up sitting there? Like, I mean, that's an amazing photo.
Is
That's
it?
an
Oh,
amazing
thank you.
That's an amazing snapshot.
You know, I was 17 at the time. I just had a little Canon camera, and I just said to him, I said, I had ideas about images, like I said, what I wanted to submit. And so I asked him to gear up in full uniform with his badge and everything.
Yeah, look at him.
Yeah.
Wow.
And just to be serious and to take a photo. And then I saw it being used, anti-graffiti campaign.
Really? That
But
photo?
I got to check for it.
Yeah,
And,
sick. Yeah.
And so
You can see he's dressed to impress, isn't he? What year is this? What year
that would have been in about 86.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're carrying around a camera back then? Like
Like in front of you, see all my
exactly.
you know, just I mean, I've got boxes of photos at home and negatives and that, you know, I was always taking along the train line. And, you know, just when I used to go to gigs and just hanging out with writers and
Look at this. I mean, get this one, Dom. The Krisy Tiff. I mean, an iconic wall we spoke about on the first podcast. But is that Trust there? Or is that Yuri?
Trust.
Trust.
Yeah.
I was going to say it looks like Trust.
Yeah, he comes up in a lot of photos.
Yeah, and go back to episode, I don't know, go back about 10 episodes. We just big shouts to Trust USA. We had him on the podcast.
Awesome, yeah.
Oh, Tiffany Krisy, look at this stuff.
Oh, that's a whack piece.
Yeah, that's a whack piece. Not that one. This is amazing, man. This is amazing. And there's the ransom. Hey, that's that. I think that's in Kingsway too, as a matter of fact.
It's not whack. It's the formulating years. You know?
Yeah, this is like, this isn't whack. I mean, what year are we talking here, Krisy? 86?
Oh, in the 80s. Yeah.
Man, like, you were one of the few women navigating that scene at the time, where you were teenagers, girls. You know, like, was it just natural, or was it an intimidating thing to be a part of? I mean, I suppose it was so early. You know, it's developing.
Yeah,
You didn't even. Not to talk.
I mean, I grew up with two older brothers, but look, I came from such a dysfunctional family, and you know, I got introduced to you know, with hip hop and rap music and stuff, you know, probably back in 84. And it was all to do with just having a crush on Choice Cuts.
That's right. Yeah, of course.
It was all because
Learning
of
the
him.
breakdance and stuff. Yeah. No, should have
Everything just kept evolving for me, you know. You know, I tried breaking and it was just too hard on my joints, on my wrists.
She couldn't do windmills.
Yeah.
She learned
really?
them. She could do about 6 windmills or something. Yeah, at
That's
her peak.
amazing.
Yeah, but you know, I was having a lot of strain on my joints, and but then, you know, I got to meet Dskyz and GS38 and so many other writers who I just loved them because they were just so creative. Then I started just sketching and then hanging out with them. I wanted to see them paint and see how they use spray paint and that. And then they let me have a go at doing fill-ins and stuff. And then I started just doing my own pieces. But, growing up in, back in the 80s, and it was very male dominated. But for me, I never, how do I say, I never felt intimidated in that because I was so well respected, because there was girls that were always, trying to get in on the scene and start tagging and that. But, unfortunately a lot of them slept around with riders, and then they'd get such bad rep for themselves. And for me, I never did that ever. And to sleep with any riders or anything, they highly regarded me as a sister. And respected me in that way, that I became a friend with everybody and mainly everyone, and I don't know, everyone kind of just knew that I was a very kind of peaceful person and didn't want friction amongst crews and that. And
I was going to ask, did you, like, your sort of disposition on life today, did you have much the same disposition then, or were you kind of, obviously we're all teenagers, you're different then, you can't say that you've had the same sort of outlook, but I would imagine you have always been a quite compassionate person and, caring. Like, you'd be hard to have beef with, surely. Like, even as a teenage girl, you probably put your parents through hell, but your crew and friends.
I think writers who knew me, I was going through so much personally at home, and people who understood that was like Murder, was Dskyz, and Trust. Even I think Trust maybe even known. But there was Jill. They all knew my personal circumstances. I grew up in a family. My dad was a violent drunk, and I couldn't. No, it's all good. They knew sometimes my circumstances. I couldn't go back home, and I needed a place to stay. And I became like a sister to them. Like, I had Murder's mum go, Krisy, you've got a bed here, you can stay here for as long as you need to. And, and I was, a good kid, a good teenager back then. I knew that I wanted to pull myself through school and eventually go, to university and become something. And, I didn't know a lot of writers were spiralling down, taking drugs and, doing burgs and things like that. And, there's that criminal element to being a writer. Of course. Yeah. And, I knew them all personally and stuff, and I kind of knew that there was, fork in the road. Fork in the road was becoming clear to me, that I went, okay, I can really immerse being a writer and, fuck authority, fuck my family, blah, blah, blah. But I went, no, I really want to turn my life around and make something for myself. As a young girl, I always just had a dream that I wanted to, put my legacy in this world, make a difference, that my name would be remembered, and that, I really tried to make a difference, in the world, put more light in this world, and people's heart and souls. And that, I knew Dskyz and Murder and GS38 and Prime and that. And, I was really trying to encourage them to go, instead of like full on, with, writers and their mentality back then, it was just like, you got to fucking bomb all the walls and lines.
Whole city, get out.
And I'm like, well, in New York, it was, Zephyr, Dondi. I was actually writing to Zephyr and finding out what are all, Scene and all the old cats in New York, old school, are doing. And they were doing exhibitions, in Europe and around the world. And I said, I was, saying to a lot of I remember to Dskyz and saying, really, why don't you start, taking this next level, next notch up than, just bombing and stuff. Look at doing exhibitions and finding ways, to make a living from, incredible art that they were doing. You know, the amazing riders.
Yeah, and not to interrupt you, but I want to add on, Dskyz, Jewel, like those dudes in their era, Ransom, like GS38, like, we state this that many times on this podcast, but what Melbourne was doing from 85 to, Jesus Christ, well into the, like, it was world class, like what those dudes were doing, like Astro Gaz in there, man.
Yeah,
like,
they're incredibly talented beyond. And, I could picture them like, I don't know, doing books and, really just taking it on an international level, hooking up, galleries and stuff like that. But they were like, oh, you're selling out and and all that.
Yeah.
And, I could just kind of see that their life was going to spiral down if they didn't take it like on a professional business or whatever it is, with their artwork and stuff. And unfortunately, I saw a lot of riders slide, I went on, to become a registered nurse, and I was working at Pentridge Prison, about 5 years later, and seeing riders from 3174 and in jail, incarcerated, for armed robberies, all sorts of stuff. I patted myself on the back that I didn't, get so full on caught up in that, because, it was just unfortunate, we're all so passionate about riding, and we're all such, tight-knit community. We all used to meet up every week, either at Richmond or the City Square. And, but, unfortunately, I just saw so many good friends, either pass away or, really just get messed up on drugs and stuff. And that's why, I know probably on a tangent here, but I wrote the story about
MSA?
About MSA crew.
Man,
and
it was my next question. It was the next
that's
thing
when I was
ask.
right in the thick of being, down with MSA, and I don't know, something within me just didn't want to have that criminal element to it, have to watch myself. Am I going to get raided by, the cops or transit police and that? And, it gave me a bit of a scare when I did have Peter Stevens call me into his office, and, I knew that they had a file thick of, they how do I say it? It's like the Gestapo, they were keeping an eye on riders and what we're up to and all the pieces. They had photos and all that. And so, I just thought, oh, shit, I don't want to go down for this. And
well, their job, they're being paid to get you. Yeah. That's what they're being paid to do. There was a whole squad designated to getting you guys.
And then when I had to work in the jails, it was awful to lose all your freedom, your rights, and you're just in a pit with all these fucking junkies, just like crim. But it's I never saw anybody, not one person ever get rehabbed from being in jail. No. And you've got to survive in there best way you can, and it's survival of the fittest.
I would imagine in Pentridge in that era.
So I was just blessed that I got into uni and studied nursing and got into breathwork eventually. But at the same time, back then, door opened for me to work on radio and present a hip hop show. So, I was still, part of the scene, but that criminal side to it, like I was able to step away from. I was just worried, if I did peace trains and walls and all that illegally, but I just thought, no, I can't do this anymore. I've got to, step up, and had a opening in radio, which was awesome.
How did that opening present itself to you?
My brother Paul had a punk show at PBS FM, and I used to come in there and be his little gopher and answer phone calls and whatever he needed. He needed a coffee and, he'd try and stretch his, you know, what I had to do at the radio station, go get me this, that. And But I got to know a lot of the staff at PBS, including Madhat, who was the manager, and she approached me saying, look, there's so many, you know, like the radio, it's so dominated by male presenters, and she wanted a female presenter, and she pondered on the idea of me presenting a hip-hop show.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've had no radio training whatsoever. I just got into nursing, and she wanted me to do it every week. And she said, look, I'll talk to DJ C.
Yes.
He's doing a hip-hop funk show, and how about he can you could do the show together, because he's eventually wanting to move away. He's got jobs in clubs, and that you take over. But I said, look, if I was to do it, I want it to be pure hip-hop, and I really want to promote Australian hip-hop. Yeah. I don't want to just play all American stuff, that was my vision. And so, you know, a couple of years later, I had my own show, Step into the AM.
Step into the AM with DJ Krisy, and what is, I would say, inarguably probably one of the most important radio shows the country ever saw. Like, it gave birth to artists from around the country, you know, to everyone, and you became the benchmark to go to, you know. Man, listen, we can't take it from every city, because every city did have their role, you know. Like, you know, we had the shows up here, Sydney, Adelaide, everyone had their shows from probably the late 80s on. Yeah. But, you know, I mean, dude, when you're my age at 13 and you hear about Step into the AM, you know, going on in Melbourne, man. And, you know, to sit here opposite you now and to be able to talk about it, you know. I mean, you also said, like, you know, we're looking at some photos here. Where was the first hip hop event in Melbourne that you helped coordinate or organise?
So I was working at PBS at the time, and I did a benefit to raise money, because we were just a public radio station. We were relying on donations and people subscribing, and so I put on a benefit and had AKA Brothers, Rise and Taki, and so anything we made on the door was going to the radio station. And then I started putting on a regular night at Big Bamboo. And that's when I had just a lot of local, you know, MCs get up on, you know, they wanted to, you know, ran a full-on cypher and just be playing beats and just allow MCs from Melbourne to get up on stage. So that was a platform on, the club, and also on radio. You know, I'd get cassettes. The manager at the radio station was always quite concerned, because she said, all the presenters, you know, you've all got a little pigeonhole for your mail. And she goes, Krisy, you don't have a pigeonhole. She goes, my friggin' office is your pigeonhole, because of all
the popularity of the show.
Yeah, it was all from record companies and from Pentridge. I'd get mail every week from inmates, and cassettes of their demos, like Bodgy on a, you know, cassette player. Wow. The recording, they're going, can you play this on radio? You know, and I'm like, you'd hear them, you just go, what the hell? But I've got a lot of the demos still, and so all the first MCs, you know, that were all starting up, you know, with you know, Brad Strutt, with Rise Taki, AKA, like, although AKA had already, you know, pressed a record, 12-inch, but it was just like so many crews were sending me demo tapes, and Reason, and you know, Mika, and just so many, you know, and they just wanted an opportunity to come on radio to
and we're in there every week with like 4 new tracks, you know, go and play these, play this, you know.
Yeah. So it's just, you know,
amongst a bunch of other crews the same night, you know.
Yeah.
Dude, so we're trying to get on,
like, we can tell a similar story here. Like, you know, like I'm obviously a generation younger than you, but the minute I was of age, or even I could get into a radio station, or like, you know, man, Thursday nights, Sunday night, anywhere you could go, man, just to speak, just to rap, just to be heard, just to think you're being heard at very least, you know, like, the hunger, you know.
The listeners,
people like us. you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Had no idea what was going on at the station. Like, you could not walk in the studio because I used to just invite everybody in, and it was just a big party every Saturday night, and everyone smoking, drinking, and all the rules what management had told us. I don't think I followed one rule. We swore on radio. We were told not to play, explicit lyrics. And so every Monday at the radio station, every Monday morning I get called in, reprimanded by the manager.
Wow.
And go, right, Krisy, where do I begin?
All those years.
But I got away with it because Steppin the AM had the most, with the jazz show on PBS, had the highest ratings.
Yes.
So she was like, okay, I'm not going to mess with it. Whatever you're doing, just keep going.
You're doing it.
And
exactly,
so, it got out of hand. I think I had, what was that, arms from, rider from
KSA.
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 Yeah, full on like bomb the whole studio just with his tags everywhere. And the managers came in and they're like, what the fuck is happening? It's fucking Krisy and a Steppin the AM show. Because I invited riders. Everyone just wanted to come in, hang out, and it kind of got a bit out of control. But, I remember I said to him, the radio station's going to get canned. I kind of lied to him. I said, it's going to get canned unless you paint the whole studio.
Yeah.
And he came in and painted it all purple. And it's never been, and for the whole time I was there, it never got touched since, and, the station loved it. And it was just crazy.
Good books and roll on.
I had to do an interview with Del and Kwame. And anyhow, I don't even know how it came about, but
what Del and Kwame? Was it two separate interviews or Del and Kwame?
No, they came on a show at Billboard in Melbourne.
Oh, so they played together in Melbourne. Oh, wow. I remember Del touring. I didn't know he toured with Kwame.
And I was interviewing Del at PBS and I don't know, some conversation went on about skinheads. And anyhow, we were about to finish the show and come out, and all of a sudden there was this whole gang of skinheads all trying to bang down the glass door at the radio station going, fuck you, rah, 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 rah.
Jesus.
And so I had to take them up through the elevator, through a shaft in the elevator, up onto the roof to get out of the radio station.
To get Del and Kwame
Welcome to Melbourne, Del.
Wow.
Welcome to Melbourne.
Wow. I never heard that story when he was on Michael Tonne's afternoon show. I remember seeing Del on the afternoon show on the ABC when I was like 12 or 13. I loved Del back then.
I was lucky. He was just so blunted and just real chill. Just had just many crazy stories, and but my vision was just have opportunity, for MCs to be heard, and I did cop a lot of flack by different crews, and MCs and who I should and shouldn't play, and why are you playing this with, they've got American accents and that, and but I just try to keep so neutral with it. Some things I didn't like, but with the accent thing, but I wanted to give opportunity, it's public radio and makes it all interesting,
Exactly. Oh, it's amazing. And it's that ethos that you brought to that we try to bring here, But like even just reflecting on that era, like I just hear so much of it and go, man, that's what it is. That's what it is. Kriti, we'll get to it. No, I want to get to a few things too.
But I've heard them all before, but I
do want to ask about the Big Bamboo. Like we've spoken about the Big Bamboo on this, but like it seemed to be like a pilgrimage for anyone of the era.
Everyone was there.
Riders, Sunday nights,
breakers,
Sunday nights.
MCs,
I mean, even Brad, I think we came up briefly. I mean, we mentioned Raf Boogie at the start. I remember he was the host. Wasn't he the host? I mean, you were the DJ. He was the host or he'd host the open mic or something like that at the Big Bamboo. Raf from the Monica Scent for anyone.
No, he did.
Going way back. What was his other crew? Kriti, sorry, what was
Aswan?
Aswan, that's right.
That's what he started off with. But I ran it with a good mate of mine called Suez, and we were just. It was hard for us to find a venue that'll let us just play straight up hip hop. And a lot of clubs were just like, no, you could do commercial hip hop, like, you know, Naughty by Nature and Run DMC and Keep It Light. But I was like, no, it's not going to work. And until I met Jaloid, and it was a full-on reggae club, and he just said, as long as we sell alcohol and it's flowing all night, no problem. Yeah. And so I ran it with Suez, and so I was just DJing. We're both DJing, and you know, we just had opportunity. It was like a cypher all night. You know, everyone just up on the mic.
Just turn up, create a circle, start breaking. There'd be MCs. We jump up and rhyme, and it was just non-stop, like, every week.
That's what I heard. Like, I think we had Trem on here, and you know, he said that RFK had travelled by train from Geelong. For the Big
they
Bamboo
come
on
down.
Sunday night,
That's right.
You know, like, crazy.
Yeah, it was pretty mad.
So it was just like it was a hotbed for talent at the time, you know. And it was once again, like Krisy, the voice you gave so many of that generation, you know, via radio and then via getting these nights, you know, facilitating these events for people to attend and to.
I loved it so much.
Oh, I'll bet.
You know, anyone who came to Big Bamboo, the owner, my gosh, like, he was this like Rastafarian guy with long dreads, and he'd just get blunted and wasted and drunk. Yeah. And half the time I'd find him out the back. And sometimes you didn't want to go out the back of this club because he'd pick up young girls and, oh God, I can't even explain it, but he'd have them frying chicken out the back at the same time he was having their fun with them. And then I said to him,
he'd have them frying chicken while he's,
making up the jerk chicken.
Jerk something or other, I don't know.
Like, it was crazy. This happened every week. And I'm like, hang on, there's no one at the bar. You guys have got to get to the bar. There's everyone wanting drinks and that. Yeah. So at the same time, I was DJing and learning how to pour beers, and it was just crazy, But it was, just such a cool atmosphere, where we just all got together and hang out, and everyone was just being creative, on the mic, and really just it was a great platform for everyone just to be self-expressive and. Used to just love just hanging back and hearing cats,
That's it, just sitting back and watching it. Like, little did you know you were creating just history, things, like we kind of say it a fair bit, but things only exist in the manner that they do today thanks to that legwork, thanks to what you did. It took that to grow, and it took that to keep going, and those ears to hear what you were doing, and that's how influence works. Even if you don't know, even if a 20-year-old kid that's putting out music and has 50,000 followers on social media isn't aware of a Krisy, a DJ Krisy, the influence is still there regardless whether he knows or not. Because he only exists out here because of that legwork. It's amazing. It's amazing to sit opposite you guys for me. It just is. Like, I can flick through this and I could just, look at this Dskyz, on the old Bluey, and like these trains and this stuff. Kriti, recently, we recently saw the release. There's Trust again, Trust with Dskyz. I might have even posted this when we had Trust on the podcast. Big shouts to Trust once again. Legend dude, absolute legend. And a number of these dudes. Big shouts to Murder, an absolute king, and who's been a great supporter of this podcast. Huge shouts to Murder and everyone, and Jewel, and everyone we have on. Look at that photo. I got to take a photo of that one. Where's that, Krisy? That photo there. Is that you? Who's that you?
That's Prowler's sister, Vicky.
Juice,
she used to write Juice. Yeah. And so that was at the time when I was trying to get into film and television at Swinburne, and I think we're like just doing. I was doing photos then, and just on the subway.
There's so many photos. We'll go through this. Kriti, recently, dude, like when we had you on, when we had you guys on last time, we spoke about Acapulco Gold, and Acapulco Gold have come up numerous times on this podcast. You recently had a couple of joints come out on the what's it called, the Australian hip hop tapes.
Australian hip hop tapes.
Yeah, shouts to
volume
Paul.
2.
Shouts to Paul. Like, you know, he's been a supporter of this podcast too. Massive
nice.
supporter. You
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. He's real good, real helpful, real solid about it.
Where were those joints unearthed? Like, where have they been sitting for all this time?
Like cassette tapes that
Was it
weren't
Jeff?
never played.
Was it Jeff? Jigsaw Jeff?
The
unearthed
Acapulco
them?
Gold stuff. Jeff had the originals of those, the masters, because we recorded it while we were up in Brisbane.
Wow,
2 tracks. There was that track that was on the record.
Yeah.
And then there was another track which was a ragamuffin hip hop track, which no one ever heard.
Yeah.
We didn't put it out there, but I've still got it.
Yeah.
And we recorded that in his studio
Yeah.
at the time.
Can I
was
just-
probably 93, I think we did that.
Can I just say,
Yeah,
just
92.
just briefly, I don't know if you've ever heard, Lazy did a song. I'm actually featuring it called I'm From Brisbane. You can find it online.
Right.
But in that song, he goes, what does he say? 93 Acapulco Gold. I thought they were famous.
Yeah, on
You know,
that
that's-
hidden track at the end
wow.
there. I
Yeah,
heard that.
I heard that.
Yeah,
You know, and I remember
was
we
like,
spoke
wow.
about it, and it's like, man, that was like the crew, you know, back then.
Yeah.
Acapulco Gold, I thought they were famous.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
1995, my first pair of Air Max trainers or something. That's how it
Yeah.
reminds it. But, you
that
know,
blew me away when I heard that, actually.
Yeah.
First
The
of all, I was like,
Acapulco
oh,
Gold.
wow, we remembered that, you know?
and just to give Acapulco Gold some context in the era, you know, like
Well, it was like that when we came up here. It was like, I mean, we weren't, but it was like, to the people, we were. You know, like it was like we were superstars of the day. You know what I mean? At the time, like for hip hop, underground hip hop. You know, as I said, I probably mentioned on the other podcast, but you know, when I got up here, like first came up here with like Oddsy and the whole THC DIE crew. You know, sat down in the house. You know, everyone around and got given like a bag of money, you know. Yeah. This is why you're here. You got a party, you know. Enjoy. Welcome to Brisbane. You know what I mean? I'm just like, damn.
Welcome to
Brisbane's
Brisbane.
gonna be all right. You know? Yeah.
Maybe a little bit better than Melbourne,
so,
anyway.
Yeah, so it was like, you know. So it was like, it was massive for us to come up here and do that, you know, and be part of that, and you know, and then I was lucky enough that while I was up here, connected really well with Lazy at the time and Damage, you know, and as you know, I mentioned, and became part of Towering Inferno with them. And we created doing that, and then did some shows and things, and that big show, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, was probably the biggest one. Yeah,
definitely.
But dope show, you know.
Yeah. And you're on there as B-Boy Flex?
Yeah, as B-Boy Flex on that at the time, and I was only meant to be here for 2 weeks. Like they came down to Melbourne, a few of them, and Oddsy and some boys. And then we drove back up, you know, and I go, I'll come up for 2 weeks with you. Turned into 3 months.
Yeah.
And there was not a week I wasn't doing shows. So it was a pretty active time,
Dude.
Yeah. So for me, that was a real special time for me. And that sort of solidified, you know, my love for Brisbane then, you know. I was staying with Hams and Felicity at the time.
Wow.
Out in Petrie Terrace.
Yeah.
And then, doing shows in the Valley every week, like every Friday night and Saturday night. Pretty much twice a week. And I was up here that long that I was at the same club every week doing shows. They kept putting me on. And then other people would come from interstate and just for one off, you know, and like I had like Brethren join me once off, you know, and they came up and did some verses Mystery, you know.
Yeah, of course.
At one point. And then off he went, you know, again.
That's someone
and
we
it was
should
like
reach out to for
just
this
little,
podcast.
man.
I should
mad
make notes.
history,
I gotta
you know.
make notes.
But so it was like people came and went, and I was just still there, you know. And then finally, after 2.5 months, I'm like, I've got to go back to Melbourne, you know. And that's when they said, no, we've got this big show, we want you on it, you know. And that was the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Glad I stayed around, but
Yeah, absolutely.
and then I eventually did have to go back to Melbourne, but then that's when I started having my, you know, life caught up with me, you know. That's the hidden part of it anyway that I was dealing with.
There's only so long you can escape it
which I regret when it occurred, you know, but I'm glad it sort of did then as well, because, you know, if it happened later, it could have messed up other shit, you know, and I'm glad that it just was able to be dealt with, you know,
dude.
From that point forward. Yeah.
That's it. Well, how did they, I mean, those, just going back to those 2 tracks, so who Frenzy or Jeff, or how do they wind up?
Well, originally Frenzy had spoken to the guy, to Paul. And he told me about it.
People can still hunt this down. I think there's
Yeah,
still
it's
a handful of copies available, and you can get it digitally.
I think the vinyl sold out.
The vinyl sold
but
out,
I think there's some CDs,
Yes.
and you can get it digitally as
Yeah.
well, like on Bandcamp and stuff like
Bandcamp,
that.
that's
I know on Claim Tree Music or something it's called.
That's
There's,
right, Claim Tree
Bandcamp. I'm pretty sure you can get some CDs on there, and you can download it digitally as well. So, yeah. So Frenzy was telling me about it, this thing, and because he'd done volume 1, it was all Sydney.
That's
know?
right. Yeah.
And he goes, I want to spread it out and do everyone, you know. And so Frenzy was trying to hook up getting one of his tracks on there, you know.
Yeah.
And then it just happened that he then decided, let's try and give him an Acapulco Gold track as well, you know, because no one had really heard those. Like, we recorded them, we never really, you know, we performed a lot live, but we never really put anything out there with it.
Yeah.
So it was just on radio, thanks to you, and, you know.
Yeah.
All those other people, you know, that did shows, and Triple R and PBS and 3CR and P-Jam and all them that would sort of have us on and do live freestyles or whatever. But so they sort of disappeared into obscurity, you know, until this. And then we just got because Jeff had the masters, the originals, you know, we just said, can you master them up for us?
Yeah.
And, he sorted that for us. So,
That's unreal.
and he did a real good job. So, and then so brought them back again for that. And then I was like blown away. He goes, you know, we put you, I think it was my track, It's Only Right, Kid. He put from 94. He put his track 1 on the album on side A, and then the Acapulco Gold last track on side B. So it was like first and last thing people are hearing, you know. I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
And I remember Paul at the time, he goes, I put you on as number 1, and the end. He goes, I guess that makes you the alpha and the omega. You know, he goes to me, I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
You know,
Dude,
but it was
must have
just
been a great
dope
feeling,
props,
though.
you know,
Yeah.
because I did release a CD, you know, in like 2013. Like I'd done lots of live shows, lots of radio, but never had an official release, you know what I mean? Even though I'd been there from the beginning, you know?
Yeah.
So it was good to have something finally official, you know?
Did you put a record out with Item? Am I tripping? Is that
A CD.
a CD? That's right. You did.
It was
hey?
in 2013.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Bunch of crap.
Yeah. Of course.
But it's you know, it's like a demo from '94, but all shiny because the technology's better, you know.
Yeah. No, because I think I dug it up.
So I squashed that.
Yeah. No, I think I dug it up like, you know, after the fact. I remember you saying,
Yeah.
and I was like, I vaguely recall that. I did.
Yeah, right.
There's a joint with Reason on there.
Yeah. Reason on there because originally, you know, as well in the early days, we're all connected with you know, we're all part of CR crew, you know, Constantly Rockin' Graph crew, you know.
Yeah.
So originally, I was like, this is before Reason was rhyming. Mika wasn't even rhyming yet, you know, at the time. And so he was like, him and Derek were the leaders of CR, basically. They, you know, started that and ran it, you know, basically. So I remember getting introduced to him one day on McKinnon Station, you know, one Friday night. My friend Soup, he's gone, you got to come down and meet these dudes, you know, and all that. And then we were just busting rhymes, and then within like 20 minutes, Mika's like, you want me to be the CR MC? You know, and I'm like, yeah, word. And that was it. We were just tight from there on, you know. So years CR happened, you know, and went by. And so every week we'd be partying together.
You're a talented,
you know.
you were a talented MC young. Like I've seen footage of you rapping, I think with Frenzy in the studio.
Right.
It was a little bit out there, you know, some old footage, isn't there?
Yeah. I've got some actually, yeah.
Is there something on YouTube? Like fucking
There is one. There's a video of like it just sort of cuts between me rapping in Frenzy's bedroom and then breaking in like a shopping centre in Richmond or something. Yeah,
that's what I've seen.
Just some early Acapulco verses that never got recorded.
But bro, it's of a level, you know, already at that stage. And that's what Brad said. You know, Brad said, you know, early on you were a mentor that deserves some, you know, deserves some credit.
Yeah. Well, he sort of, you know, we sort of. Well, Frenzy, you know, pretty much more Frenzy, but because he was around there more. But I was on the other side of the city, and I would just come over, but as much as I could, you know. It was pretty much between us that sort of took him into the, you know, sort of the wings of it all, and brought him to everyone else, and you know that's how the RFK Connect came as well through Frenzy, and we'd all gather together, and you know, I'd started a crew in '90. Graph crew called AM, you know, and they were all in that, and Tass and Parrot and all these other dudes, Alien, you know, we're all sort of, they got down with it as well, you know, because we went to the same school, Len and all that, Len 1, like, you know, they were just like kids at school who loved a bit of hip hop, you know what I mean, at the time. And then we used to catch the same train back, and I'd be bombing the whole carriage before, you know, within a stop or two, you know, and they'd be like, what the fuck, just standing there at the other end, you know, watching, going, damn. And then like, I'm like, well, come hang out, you know, let's do this, you know, and then next thing you know, they're just better than I was at it, you know what I mean? Like, they were just dope, like, you know, so that sort of grew AM, and then when the RFK Connect, it was AM RFK, and then eventually I just said, look, let's just drop the AM and we'll all be RFK. And that's how it was, and sort of stayed that way. But I sort of started with one of the originals as well. We restarted AM recently, so there's now it's been going pretty hard this year. A lot of pieces been done.
Oh, dude, actually, I saw. I
so
saw
it's
some.
and that's just some of it. But there's a lot been done, and it's firing back up, but just with good quality, you know. So
man, that's amazing.
It's sort of bringing that circle around again. But the music's just good to have something finally official. You know what I mean? Like, because I've never had that, and I've never been on wax. I feel like, you know, like I said to Krisy at the time, I'm like, I never, you know, I was like doing like the Lee off Beat Street, you know, I've never been on TV before. If you just slip on that tape, you know what I mean? I was like, never been on vinyl before. If you just slip on that record, like, you know what I mean? Like, just. But the funny thing is, I've got doubles of it, and I haven't even played it yet. You know what I mean? So I haven't actually heard myself on vinyl yet. Like, you know, I broke the seal on one just so I could get the free download. You know,
he's unearthing some gems though, isn't he? Like,
but and he's already working on number 3.
I heard.
He's going to do some different things with this one though. So it's going to be cool. I think it'll be all right.
Dude. That's amazing.
But so I mean, it's tiny compared to what people have done these days and since, you know, my day. But
but they're all stepping stones.
But it's something official. You know?
They're all stepping stones.
And that's all I needed in my life. You know what I mean? To be happy with that. You know.
100%.
But as I said, I'm got a few things in making at the moment, about 3 different projects at once. So. And they're going to be pretty dope.
That's fantastic, man.
As I said, I've been talking with Duckets a bit, so we're working on a track, going to be working on a track together. We've been passing beats around, and we're sort of flicking ideas back and forward.
I can see that too.
And we blend pretty well with that, you know, like we're both on our paths, and it sort of blends well, and we can respect each other's path, you know, and bring it together in hip hop. You know what I mean?
Exactly, and that's what I like so much about Duckets. Duckets is unique. Duckets is a unique talent.
He's dope, man.
He is so dope.
Like we'd never, to be honest, we'd never seen him. Heard him anything before that show,
and then you saw him,
and we saw it, and we were just both like, first he walked out on stage and he looked like a Hare Krishna, you know what I mean? And we just went, all right, this is different. Let's watch this, you know, what's going on, you know. But he just controlled it. You know, he just had that crowd. He was calm, but he had fire. He had lyrics. His bars were tight. We were just going, this kid, man,
he's a veteran MC in this city at this point.
Yeah.
What do you say, Russ?
Oh, we've since done a lot of research and found out, you know, he's done his ground,
way
you know.
back, you know, since the early 2000s.
You know, he's been we hadn't really delved into it, you know what I mean? We've been building our path, you know, with breathwork and everything else, so we missed a lot of cool stuff, you know. But, discovering it, we were just like, wow, that's inspirational. And that inspired me, you know what I mean, to go, okay, well, maybe we're going to have to talk to this lad, you know? Of
course.
I thought there's something we can do here, you know, that's going to be, you know, be able to put our things together into hip-hop. So, and we're both down with it, so it's going to be cool, you know. Going to keep out for that. You know, whether we do anything with it or not, doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
You know, we might perform it one day in Brizzy somewhere together, you know, or something, you know, in one of his sets, you know.
Exactly. But it's just that,
and that's enough, you know.
That creativity, dude. It's
just
doing
so it's just good.
You know, putting yourself into it.
And it's, for me, it's nice. It's, you know, it's helping inspire, you know, not that he's up and coming, but younger youth, you know, compared, you know, to us, you know, we're like, you know, nearly 50 and shit, you know, and whatnot. And
see, Duckets isn't up and coming, but he's still on the rise. He's still on the rise. Like Duckets has been up and coming forever.
Yeah, but he's got plenty of room to boogie, man. That guy's got talent. You know what I mean?
I believe in him. And
I do, man. That's why I had to approach him. I was like, this is a no-brainer, man. This guy's good. You know? I want to support that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, dude.
So that was cool that he was open to that as well.
Yeah.
But and then doing stuff with like another dude who's a Ragamuffin MC. He's like pretty big as well. Yeah. A guy called Dskyz. We're about to start doing some stuff too. Like we were just chatting recently about. So he's going to send me some beats as well. And I'm just going to be doing like, because I've been writing a lot of reggae music, Ragamuffin stuff as well. I have done since early days, but more so specifically nowadays, doing a lot of that sort of more conscious lyrics and whatnot. But for his stuff, it's going to be strictly underground hip hop and him doing a ragga, so it's going to be like a real combination, you know, and just
like the Bush Babies or something like that.
Yeah,
remember the Bush Babies?
Like it'll be like something
like
real, like It'll be like the return of like ragamuffin hip hop from Masha D and Daddy Freddie. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, something like that. You know,
dude. With this stuff, you kind of provide the musical journey that people in some ways. Is that
definitely,
right in
100%.
saying so?
Yeah,
like,
100%.
how do you curate that experience for the individuals in the room? Like when you're DJing, when you're playing the music, that they're having these experiences.
Yeah,
too,
well,
like,
you're watching the way they're breathing. You're watching how their journey is interacting with them and what it's causing them to be in, like what state they're in at the time, where they're at, you know, knowing the breath and knowing the journey and knowing the processes of where people are at in their journey and what they, you know, are going through in life. You learn to pick these things and sort of see, okay, this person's going through this or whatever. And so you'll see things happening and people might start emoting and yelling out, you know, whatever's coming out, just let it go, you know, rather than hold it. And so you start flowing with that, you know, you see them doing that, so you bring in something that's just like this rising atmospheric sort of emotional feeling that's almost classical, you know. And I sort of started by doing like, I sort of after drifted from like when I first sort of stepped back from hip hop, you know, as a solid everyday 24/7, you know, life, and I wanted to sort of find more spiritual things. I started sort of getting involved in like psychedelic music, psytrance and things like that sort of scene, you know, and I sort of saw the way that it was a musical journey with the better parts when people put together a thing rather than just playing whatever banging track after the other, you know, and I was sort of more interested in the way music can move you, you know, like, because that's what hip hop did, you know, like, so for me, it had to be a journey, you know, so then following, and then knowing what types of, and abusing myself with psychedelics over the years, you know, I sort of learnt the ways of the psychedelic mind, you know, and so I knew what triggers certain aspects of things to be, you know, within a soul, you know, and so bringing that into the breathwork journey, I was able to then say, okay, well, during these moments, if you bring this sort of sound, it's going to exaggerate that, and it's going to help them bring that out and allow it to flow through them instead of choking on it, you know, and so I just, over time, you know, we breathe like thousands of people, literally, you know. So over time, seeing that many people go through their processes, you know, you sort of started learning what it is that actually creates the perfect environment for them to be safe and comfortable and feel like they can just be with it, you know, and whatever is, whatever isn't. And so you sort of formulate your journey to what's actually going on around you, you know, at the time.
It's like the music really enhances them with their breathing, you know. And it's been researched how powerful sound healing is, helping people to go into deep, you know, if we were to put electrodes on people's on their heads and, you know, look at the, what do you call it, the waves.
The brainwave.
Frequencies.
And that towards the end of journeys, even Dr. Joe Dispenza, he actually wrote a book. What was it called? Joe Dispenza.
Got lots of books.
I know. I was trying to think offhand, but you might know all of a sudden.
Oh, which one are you thinking of?
But it'll probably come to me.
I've got like all these titles flashing in my head from him.
But, you know, he said breathwork, it really helps. He did a lot of research with, you know, with the breath and that you go into deep delta theta states of consciousness. That's like dreamlike state very quickly, you know, where allowing your imagination to open up. And even Steve Jobs, before he passed away, before he became huge with Apple, he spent time in India and learnt from Yogananda and a yogi and knew how powerful breathwork is himself and wanted, when he passed away, he wanted all those who came to his wake to get a copy of Autobiography of a Yogi by Yogananda.
Wow.
You know, just how powerful yoga is if we're able to
consciousness, you know.
Incorporate in our life, you know, healthy diet, exercise, breathe, meditation, that, you know, to have balanced body, mind, spirit, you know, that we can open up more consciousness and, you know, beyond this linear path, you know, we can open up more of our reality beyond. Yeah.
It's like the third eye, like just the, that.
Yeah, it's all real. Spirit world is more real than we realise. It's around us constantly.
Yeah, man. No, I believe it. 100%. 100%. I heard...
And we know, we've had, like, during breathwork, sorry to cut you there.
No,
even during breathwork, we've had where we physically can see actual, like, energy entities leave people, black balls of solid shadow mass coming out of people and darting out of that house, basically, out of the building, like, and
exercising demons.
Yeah, it literally gets that way. It's I remember we had this one person we had to in the middle of the breath, it was like it was like The Exorcist, man, not even a joke. She's lying there, this like woman, Nelly, in her 60s and close to 70s, I think, and laying there, and then halfway through the breathwork session, she just sits bolt right up. Her legs don't move; they're flat to the ground, but her waist up, straight up, and then starts moving, like possessed or something, and then starts talking in this deep, weird voice that I couldn't even replicate. It was like a demon on a movie, type voice, out of this little frail woman, came this big voice, a breath changed, she became foul, and
the smell from her breath was,
and she was sweat, but she
awful.
wasn't like that before. Before,
Hang on, wait. He was DJ. I'm on the floor with all the participants. And I'm trying to wave to get Kriti's attention because I just knew there was something like just not right within her. Like, what the hell's going on? Because I kneeled down towards her and she had her eye mask on, and I knew she was in deep altered states. And, and then, she was kind of like the robot.
Wow. And it's like full on. It was, and I've just like being ordained minister as well, Reverend. I've pulled out like the rites of just a minor rite of exorcism, like deliverance, and I'm like standing there under my breath, and no one in the room could hear it. They didn't know what was happening. They were just in their journeys. I'm like reading these rites to her, trying to settle it down and going, what's going on here? Trying to help her because I knew it was something dark. Krisy's trying to help her. Next thing you know, I see it dart out of her and across the room and out the house. It's gone. It like in such a place of light, it just couldn't stay. And she's just fallen back onto the thing like nothing happened, back to normal. She was fine ever since.
Jesus.
And I didn't tell anybody that I'd seen this thing, not even Krisy. At the end of the session, this other girl came up to us who was near me where I was DJing and goes, were you guys pushing on my chest at some point? And we go, no. She goes, I felt like someone was trying to get in my chest, and then I'm like, no, not at all. And she goes, I didn't think so because I lifted my blindfold up to look around and I saw a black shadow go across the wall, like this little thing. And I'm going, that's exactly what I saw. And I didn't tell anyone that was real. You know what I mean? Like,
wow.
And so we've dealt with this multiple times, had this come out of people, entities and things like that. I also run a paranormal investigation team. A diploma in parapsychology and demonology as well.
What's that?
So parapsychology is basically, a study of all things supernatural, anomalous, if you want to call it. Things like ESP and extrasensory perception, being able to read what card am I holding up here, type thing, all those sorts of things you've heard about and read about over the years, It's the study of these things, basically. But also coming from the paranormal field, because when I was a kid, my mum used to know this, an ex-priest. I was young, not even a teenager yet. And he used to show her photos, but it wasn't, back then it was slides. You had slides. You didn't have the photo, a little plastic thing you could put up on a thing to project it or whatever.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But he used to show my mum, he'd actually left the church from being a priest to full-time become a paranormal investigator because he'd just seen too many things that he just wanted to know, had to, go into it. And him and a friend of his started doing investigations, and he'd tell us stories all the time of things that had happened and go on, and then so he'd start showing my mum slides. He'd be like, do you want to see him? And I'm like, no, because I was like a little kid, I was a bit scared, I'm like, no, I don't want to see it, But after a few weeks, I'd be like, I want to see, and he sort of took me under his wing and started teaching me all about paranormal stuff, and so that became like my life sort of thing as well. But I never spoke about it, but it's just what I was always into, from a young age. And then started a team with it, and all those shows you see on TV, I've got all that equipment you can imagine, and more. But and we help a lot of people with, clearing their homes, disattaching entities and sending them back on their way, and helping people get their lives back, from spiritual trauma. It's become massive. So, run a team on the Gold Coast with that as well.
That's unreal. It's like fucking
Scooby-Doo
or some shit, He gets to the end of it, I would have got away with it too if it wasn't for these pesky kids.
Yeah, but it's real,
you know what I mean?
But this is real stuff. So,
bro, listen, 100%. I don't mean to cheapen it.
I mean, a lot of people can go through life and never experience a single thing. Doesn't mean it's not real.
Dude.
But,
no, like I've been into that
shit. A lot go on,
bro. I've been into that shit since I was a kid. Since I was a kid, and I've been.
Believe me, I've got photos and videos and voices and things I could show you and be going, wow,
Yeah, man. So my mum, like one of the things that like kind of fascinated me. What time is it? Because we got to get you boys out of here, do we? Are we good? Are we still good for time? Oh, let me just fucking check. Oh yeah, we will have to start wrapping up. Hey? Yeah, because Russ needs to get the studio. I'll just say this: like I remember, my mother was very close with her grandmother, and I remember as a kid, and this is one of the things that kind of got me into this. I've never really told too many people this, but when my mother's grandmother passed, she was distraught for days. I remember I was like maybe 10 or something like that, and my mum was just distraught. My old man was never very, he's a caring person, but not the most compassionate of people. And so my mum, like on I think the third day of just sort of just mourning and death or whatever, following the funeral, she went to bed that night and just fell asleep. And then, to make a long story short, my mother's grandmother, my great grandmother, appeared at the foot of the bed and took my mother by the hand. And my mum reckons she stood there shaking my dad. And my dad's named Mario, going, Mario, wake up. And my mum is just fucking shaking the shit out of him.
Wouldn't wake up.
Like her grandmother sat down and goes, it's okay, just chill. She led her by the hand, led her around the bed, talked to her, laid her back down, and like the grief just disappeared following that. And I've always remembered that story. Like my mum will tell it, my mum's not like that, and
spirit will do that.
Man, like it takes my breath even just fucking talking about it, It's kind of like, whoa, man. And I believe that shit, dude.
There's a lot going on out there that we don't open up to, and we sort of block out and, we're just focused on whatever it is, it's hard to believe when something is outside the reality we're taught,
Yeah, man. Or beyond the, sort of beyond the confines of the popular narrative. But it's hard for our minds to really grasp.
To accept
it's just
that there's more than this,
Exactly, that there is something beyond this. But how naive is it to think that when we have this, when we can exist through this, there isn't something greater. There isn't some greater
exactly.
entity.
We're not the only
us.
intelligent being on Earth,
let
alone
the
universe and whatever else is beyond the multiverses, it's endless and constant. It's consistent.
Oh, guys, listen, man, we could do this all night, but we do have to wrap up. Where should we leave shit?
Yeah.
Like, we're, Russ has got to get into the studio and I've got to get
all good.
Like, where should we, where can people get at? Like, I mean, you just have
you can get us on Facebook at Shamanic Transcendence, Bar City Lakes, capital letter at the start of first of every word. Yeah. You can also find us on Instagram at Shamanic Transcendence, I think.
I'll tag everyone into everything as we go through this,
Oh, we appreciate so much. And
also at meetup.com/shamanic-breathwork.
Okay.
Yeah.
You'll find us as well.
Yeah.
So they're the main places.
Appreciate, you calling us in to be on your podcast, and I know this is really off the rails from the whole
from the underground hip hop thing, but
but
it's the realities. It's the realities of what life is,
this is life,
and
man.
this is our part of our life.
And this is the life you created for us in some capacity. Like
we
particularly
appreciate
for ourselves too.
and
for
so
everyone.
grateful, and that we don't forget. Our past, we honor that, it's what has shaped us to who we are today. And
the future's got some fire though, what I mean? So we can't deny that either, so
but your
big
history,
props to everyone.
Your history is just so rich, and your history is everything that exists today. Everything that exists today, look at this stuff. But then this, like, this is life, man. This is what it is to grow and to develop as humans and stuff like that. And
it's a choice, it's
I can't
like,
thank
do
you
I
enough.
stick in this or do I make make something more positive
Yeah.
for my life.
Listen,
and
we
for
can
those
talk
around.
about rap music all bloody night.
Yeah.
But you know, it's,
Oh, we
it's
all
good to
could.
have
Yeah,
a
no,
fucking good
understand.
conversation
Yeah,
about
yeah.
some other shit, you know?
Yeah.
And it's interspersed with the hip hop and stuff. We got the history
Yeah.
and all that sort of stuff. Man, this is fantastic, guys. Listen, you guys will be tagged into everything throughout the week. We'll I can't prop you enough. Once again, I mean, DJ Krisy, you know, like DJ Krisy did it all before all of us. You know,
Yeah.
you did. You truly did, you know,
Oh,
and
thank you.
well, you know, we're here to give you your props, you know, so
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you
Oh,
for
look,
everything.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's just been a pleasure. It's been fun.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
life has got to be fun.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
But it's not over yet, is it? So
Hey.
much more ahead of you.
Yeah,
you know?
who
Just
knows?
breathe until you're
yeah.
surprised.
Yep, that's it.
That's it. Well,
You know?
we got to pack these lights up. Get
Yes.
Russ, get the studio
Yeah.
cleared up. Once again, shouts to Madhat. Well,
Right.
shouts to Kriti.
Shouts to
Shouts
you
to
guys.
DJ Krisy,
Yeah.
Krisy Conroy. We're going to once again, everything will be tagged on social
Thank you,
media.
Russ, for the space.
Man, this has
Thank
been Biz
you.
Beats and the Biz for another week. I was going to ask you about how all your photography wound up in Kingsway, but maybe we'll save that for a part 3. You know, maybe we can sit down in front of the cameras again some other time. So,
Yeah,
you know, because
awesome.
look at all this stuff. Like, this is,
Yeah.
you know, man, this is amazing history. Shouts to everyone tuning in. Please rate, subscribe, get at us,
Yeah.
shout at us, repost us, all that kind of shit. Man, shouts to Gus, shouts to Dom, shouts to Insidious. We're out of here. This is Biz Beats and the Biz. Bam, baby.
Peace.